All right, hello, and welcome to week 4 of summer composition. I will have you know that this is actually technically your last week of session 1, just considering that the session does officially end on the 30th of June, which I believe lands on a Tuesday. So what's going to happen is the session is just going to end in the middle of the week, and we'll have to move right along to session 2, which is an entirely separate curriculum and timeline. So we have to finish up this project by next Tuesday, which is kind of weird. So we'll be starting it this week and then it will be due next Tuesday. So there won't really be anything other than this project. You finished up the last of the grammar stuff Monday and Tuesday, and then you will work on your second project, and that'll be it for session 1. And then those of you who are with me for session 2 will just move right into that. Those of you who aren't, sayonara, good luck. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. You're both doing great with turning things in and doing projects, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where you're at. So all of a sudden the session ends and you're not like, wait, what? We're moving on to something else? Yeah, this month went super quickly, but I'm really proud of you both for staying diligent and working hard throughout the entirety of the session. So let me hop into what I wanted to talk about for this video. Every time we start a new project, I like to just make a video about it and just talk through it. I would get us all on Zoom, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when we're all working at different times. It's stupid to coordinate something like that when I could just make a video explaining it. And you can obviously message me with questions. So for project number 2, it's in the Wednesday folder. It's called the assignment sheet for it. If you open it up, it's a nice little Google Docs. Same with your other project, kind of just lays out the expectations and a little description of the project. So project number 2 for the session is a fictional story. As promised, you would write 2 types of narratives during this session: a personal, non-fictional, true narrative about your life, and a fictional short story. Those are the 2 different types of narratives or storytelling that you can do. So yeah, this little description just talks about how we're kind of transitioning into the telling of a fictional story. Has all of the same requirements, right? Has the plot lines, story structures. I had you guys practice a million times with a million different things. Beginning, middle, end, rising action, conflict, resolution, all that fun stuff. You know this. Has to have your own ideas for events and characters. It could be loosely based off of something else, like some other story or show that you know of, but ultimately if I can catch on that you are using the plot from a movie or a show, or if I can put it into Google and it resembles some sort of IMBD description, you're gonna get clocked for plagiarism, which is not good for anybody. This is your last project to just write me a story. It's actually super easy, and usually for high school writing, you would have to do something much more difficult. So just do your best on this. The story can be set in the past, present, or future. So it can be like an old-timey story. It could be something that could happen now. It could be very futuristic, whatever meets your fancy. Everybody has different tastes when it comes to creative writing. It can be totally fantasy, imaginary creatures and supernatural stuff, or it can be realistic. It could be like a episode of Gossip Girl. It's like teen drama and high school stuff. Whatever you feel natural making up a storyline about or writing about in great detail. But it can't just be how you would tell a story to a friend, right? You can't just be like, well, I went to McDonald's, I got a double cheeseburger. No, it has to be very vivid. It has to be a very descriptive and illuminated telling of the story. And essentially what that is using captivating action verbs. So not just she went to McDonald's, she trotted to McDonald's, she skipped to McDonald's, making the verbs a little more specific to help the reader to get a good image of what you're trying to convey. Using descriptive adjectives and adverbs, which we just learned about yesterday and Monday, so you are very fresh in the brain what an adjective and adverb is, those describing words, right? And what you're ultimately doing is just bringing the action to life for the reader. When it comes to the short story, it's less about the personal reflection piece like it was for the other project, and way less, not at all about writing an essay. It's not an essay structure at all. It is simply about telling the story. So all of the detail has to go into bringing the story to life, okay? Whereas with the essay that we wrote last week, this story was kind of secondary. It was here's a story about a challenge in my life. It was challenging because blah, 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 and you told a little story. No. This particular project, the whole thing is a story. There's no essay thesis. There's no essay conclusion. All 5 paragraphs are the story. Just want to make that very clear. And you want to help your readers to really picture what is happening in that story. So when I talk about a story being vivid, you could have said, we went to the park. If you add adjectives, we went to the thrilling amusement park. Added some prepositional phrases. Four of us went to the thrilling amusement park next to the Mall of America, so now we have a little detail. You could replace the verb and make it a little more specific to the situation. So four of us raced to the thrilling amusement park next to the Mall of America, right? So now we have an entirely different, more specific, more vivid sentence. And that is how your entire story will have to be written for the most part. Um, and since it's kind of weird to grade a story, I'm not really grading you on like your creativity or the content that you choose. Like I said, everybody has different tastes when it comes to that sort of thing. What I'm grading is that it is 2 pages double spaced in the correct font. It has a clear beginning, middle, and end, just like any other thing that you would write, right? You want that rising action climax, clear conflict building here, and then a falling action and resolution where the conflict gets solved. Must revolve around a conflict, and it has to get resolved in the end, whether that's a weird resolution, sort of like those uh, loose ties, hanging resolutions, that's fine, or it can totally be solved and everyone lives happily ever after. Again, whatever your taste is when it comes to creative writing. Has to have at least partially developed characters. In your other piece of writing that you wrote, you didn't have to give me a ton of background information about the people in your story because it was more about your own reflection. With this, I want to know who the characters are and what their role in the story is so I can make sense of what you're trying to explain to me. So give me a little bit of background on the appearance and personality of each character. Has to have a clear setting. You'll want to set that up in the exposition, which is the beginning of your story. So kind of just tell me who the characters are, where they are living or where the action is going to take place, the time period, and make sure to be as specific as you possibly can with that. Again, you're making this all up, so you can literally do whatever you want. It's a very easy task. Um, Obviously, you have to use vivid verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, making the story really come to life. Has to be original, like I mentioned, making sure that it's your own ideas for plot and characters, not things that you stole and are just kind of regurgitating. And it has to make sense. It should be something that I can follow without getting super confused. So make it simple, but still make it creative. That's going to be the tough part, right? Not like making this super far out story that I'm like, whoa, who are these characters and why don't you give me background on them? Like simple, but a creative idea is the goal here. All right. And like I said, I'm not super sure on the timeline for this being due yet, just because next week is going to be really weird with the session ending in the middle of the week. But I imagine that I will just make this due on the last day of the session, so Tuesday. So this is really like the last thing that you guys are doing. So put your all into it. Make sure that you follow the timeline of like outlining and drafting and such, so I can actually give you the revisions and you can make the revisions. That seemed to be really helpful during the last project. And that is about it. I think this will be the last time that I talk to you like this before the end of the session. So if you won't be with me for the next session, it was great having you in class. Thank you for putting your all into the summer session. I know it can be really difficult having to do school stuff right off of the tail end of the regular year, especially doing it all on a computer. That is a ton of work. I know it has been for me as a teacher. So I applaud you and I wish you the best of luck for your senior year, whatever that may look like. All right. Thanks, guys. And please let me know if you have any questions about the project.